So with that, there is no further ado, Linda Evans. Thank you.
I'd like to start out by reading a poem. And it's a poem that's really important to me because it became the name of our organization, All of Us or None. Can you hear me okay? I don't know how this is working. So this poem was written by Bertolt Brecht in the year 1945. He was a communist playwright and fought against the Nazis. And I wanted to read it because it encapsulates what all of us are trying to do today. All of Us or None by Bertolt Brecht. Slave, who is it that shall free you? Those in deepest darkness lying. Comrade, only these can see you. Only they can hear you crying. Comrade, only slaves can free you. Everything or nothing, all of us or none. One alone his lot can't better, either gun or fetter, all of us or none. You who hunger, who shall feed you? If it's bread you would be carving, come to us, we too are starving. Come to us and let us lead you. Only hungry men can feed you. Everything or nothing, all of us or none. One alone his lot can't better, either gun or fetter, everything or nothing, all of us or none. Beaten man, who shall avenge you? You on whom the blows are falling, hear your wounded brothers calling. Weakness gives us strength to lend you. Come to us, we shall avenge you. Everything or nothing, all of us or none. Who, O wretched one, shall dare it? He who can no longer bear it. Counts the blows that arm his spirit, taught the time by need and sorrow, strikes today and not tomorrow. Everything or nothing, all of us or none. One alone his lot can't better, either gun or fetter, everything or nothing, all of us or none. So I'm really deeply grateful. Bertolt Brecht, huh? I'm really deeply grateful to DecARcerate Arkansas for the opportunity to talk with you today. It's a big privilege for me, just as an organizer and also as a California prison abolitionist. I have tremendous respect for the work that you all are doing about solitary confinement and for your advocacy in the legislature and in the community. I'm looking forward to the chance to learn from all of you, and I hope you'll all write down your questions so we can answer them later. I'm not here to convince you that prisons should be abolished. I think most of you are already convinced that punishment does not deter crime and that prisons embody the brutality and white supremacy of our society. Any of you who have been locked up inside prison already have experienced the extreme humiliation of being treated as government property. I hope all of you believe that prisons should be eliminated, so I don't have to talk to you about that. I'm here to talk with you about how we can work together to get that done. I want to emphasize that I personally believe that abolition is achievable and essential. In California, we've been working on a prison closure campaign to close 10 of our state's 33 men's prisons and to shut down both of the women's prisons, as well as a campaign to eliminate California's very complicated laws governing life without the possibility of parole, or LWOP. And the fact that the state is still holding 5,200 men and women hostage with no hope of parole. I'd like to give a little historical perspective about how much formerly incarcerated people have gained, how we did it, and some things we learned. When I got out of prison after 16 years and 8 months in 2001, people who had been to prison were uniformly stigmatized by society. No one was talking about reentry or alternatives to incarceration. Nobody except our families really thought we were worth much of anything. And nobody placed much value on what we had to say. People with criminal convictions were excluded from receiving any kind of resources. The majority of us were and are Black people. And because of past convictions, provided a really easy cover for continuing racial discrimination. At that time in the early 2000s, people coming out of prison had no collective identity, except for the collective and traumatizing experience of prison. Even though we knew the extent of harm that the criminal justice system was doing to our communities, we had been robbed of our civil and human rights by imprisonment, and many of us felt powerless. But we organized ourselves. Our very first donation was from a formerly incarcerated professor. We received very little financial support for the organizing. I actually received one of the very first Soros Justice Fellowships that was ever awarded to a formerly incarcerated person, and that really helped us get a start. Also, Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, who sponsored All of Us or None, had a co-director who was formerly incarcerated as well. We started by calling together organizers, formerly incarcerated organizers from all over the state. And of course, in California, that meant crossing not only age and racial lines, but also the geographic lines that Michael was talking about earlier today. That violent separation between North and South that was so heightened and made worse by the guards in prison. Some of the people who were involved in creating All of Us or None were former Black Panthers or former Black Liberation Army members. Many of us were former activists or went to prison because of our political activities. All of our founding members had been in state or federal prison or a youth prison. We came together consciously viewing our work as a continuation of the struggle for civil rights. We brought people together, uniting based in our common experience and the resulting discrimination that we all suffered. We named our organization All of Us or None, from the poem by Bertolt Brecht, as a way to proclaim and claim our collective identity and to leave the public with the understanding that we would leave no one behind. Our goal has always been to build a grassroots organization that would fight for the civil and human rights of currently and formerly incarcerated people and our families. In 2003, we knew that we needed to identify exactly what our needs were and are when we come back from prison and how to get those needs fulfilled for the individual and collective health of our communities. So we organized formerly incarcerated people around the state to testify about their experiences to elected officials and to community leaders. We held a series of 6 Peace and Justice Community Summits. In their testimonies, formerly incarcerated people talked about being denied not only jobs, but custody of their own children. They testified about being denied housing, voting rights, access to services, and even higher education because of these convictions. What clearly emerged was that structural discrimination based on past criminal convictions, a discrimination that was restricting many individuals' ability to restart their lives. And that discrimination is embodied in the box. That box that appears on every application that confronts you when you come out of prison. Have you been convicted? Have you been convicted by a court, a military court, a juvenile court? Probably everybody in the room knows what that box is. So we learned a lot of things in the process of organizing. In Ban the Box, and almost immediately in our work with elected officials, we realized that we could not participate in policy discussions with anybody that called us degrading terms. We demanded that they change their language. Before the emergence of a political movement of formerly incarcerated people who had been in prison, we were all called derogatory terms like convicts, ex-convicts, criminals, ex-offenders, prisoners, inmates. This language locked us into the past and defined us by our mistakes. Prison uses terms like these, along with other forms of extreme humiliation and dehumanization, as weapons against us when we're inside. Thus, the importance of calling ourselves people and demanding that everyone use that terminology. People in prison, people on parole, people with conviction histories, formerly incarcerated people. And I remember really clearly being in a demonstration against CDCR where our slogan, and this to me is just epitomizes what a terrible place our society is. Our slogan that we were shouting at CDCR, prisoners are human beings. How low is our society gone that we have to say that? In Ban the Box and in subsequent campaigns, we demanded inclusion and policymaking power because we directly experienced that discrimination. And therefore, we knew that we were the best equipped to visualize and to create solutions. We are the ones that are the experts. The inclusion of formerly incarcerated people in policymaking is not for show. We are not tokens to be counted or quotas to be ticked off. We are present and demanding our rights. We have found time and time again that we are actually the ones with the most intimate knowledge of how a policy is implemented on the ground. So we are often the people with the most specific and effective solutions. When we first organized, many of our white allies in nonprofits and service organizations felt threatened. Some realized that they had been acting out of a missionary mentality, not recognizing the humanity and potential power of the people that they were interacting with. They felt that their expertise, priorities, and jobs were being challenged. It was difficult for them to relinquish their power, especially over finances. Because of these fears, sometimes their support was not robust or forthcoming. Now it has become clear that our movement to end prisons needs us all acting with the clearest and most inclusive vision, and all of us called on to contribute in whatever ways we can. If we have a unified strategy, we can all contribute in the areas where we have the most expertise and resources. In the beginning, we also had trouble getting funding for any organization that was led by a formerly incarcerated person. Foundations and donors were suspicious of our integrity and doubted whether we would be accountable to funders. They fell for the myth that because we had been convicted of crimes, we could not be trusted with money. The value and effectiveness of our work, however, convinced donors to fund our organizations and to recognize that we are accountable and responsible leaders. In the course of numerous Ban the Box campaigns around the country, we learned that alliances for basic civil and human rights are possible with so many different categories of people and kinds of people. For example, organizations of Black law enforcement actually endorsed Ban the Box. Labor unions endorsed Ban the Box, as did other unexpected allies like mayors, local and state elected officials, religious and social organizations. Our rallying cries were equality of opportunity and a fair chance after serving your sentence. Those attracted civil rights organization support. The ACLU in California actually sponsored a billboard campaign with pictures of All of Us or None members, providing really effective public education right out there in a billboard about the right to vote after a felony conviction. Eventually, business leaders even came forward to testify about what great and reliable workers we were. All of these kinds of testimonies helped us pass Ban the Box legislation in different cities and counties. We also learned not to be possessive of our campaign. We couldn't contain Ban the Box. People in cities and counties all over the U.S. believed in its fundamental fairness and saw it as an effective avenue to end discrimination. So we freely consulted with everyone who sought us out and supported formerly incarcerated people all over the country, everywhere, in starting their own Ban the Box campaigns. When elected officials contacted us directly, we tried to influence their ideas and connect them with formerly incarcerated activists in their own areas. We created a toolkit for grassroots organizations with all the significant documents and model policies that we had created, and we distributed it widely and free of charge. As a result, today, over 37 states and 150 cities and counties have banned the box for public employment. That means that 4/5 of the population of the United States lives in a place where they have banned the box for public employment. It's a big deal. 15 other states, or 15 of those 37 states, and 22 cities have gone even further and require fair chance hiring policies from all private employers. Here in Pulaski County, you have banned the box for public employment, but this is the only county in Arkansas. And does everybody know that you've banned the box for public employment? Is it easier for people to get jobs? A lot of follow-up on implementation needs to be done to make sure that the laws that are passed are actually implemented. We also learned that our political power comes from both community education and participation and the vote. So many of our people are denied the right to vote. Only Vermont and Maine allow people in prison to vote. And most states deny voting rights to people on probation or parole. Some states have a lifetime ban against anybody with a conviction ever voting again. 1 in 3 people in the United States has a past conviction. Makes voting rights even more of a baseline necessity for our communities to have any kind of power. Now, I just want to mention a couple problematic trends that I see developing. Number one, and this is really true in California, we have way too many nonprofit organizations. Often with very limited scope and vision. Single issue, without an overarching analysis or participation in any kind of broader strategy. Our organizations end up competing with each other for funding, for membership, for attendance at events and demonstrations. Also, foundations sometimes spotlight individuals rather than acknowledging our collective achievements. And that spotlight can encourage ego, individualism, and even corruption in our leaders. Even though an organization may have a narrow focus, coalition building and good communication create really broad opportunities for strategic change, and that has got to be a priority for us. Another trend is that I think we need much broader political education, and we need to struggle about power shifts and specific details in our campaigns. For example, California Coalition for Women Prisoners and all abolitionists confront doubt about whether and how prison closure is really possible. So in the women's prison closure campaign, we are paying a lot of attention to being really clear about where people currently in prison would go and how they could be housed through a reallocation of budget dollars from prison maintenance and guard salaries to transitional housing, education, and services. And when we rally around Drop LWOP and work to end extreme sentencing, our approach is not abstract. We have a strategy to dismantle LWOP in California based on an analysis of the current laws and how they were constructed, because that determines what percentage of the vote in the legislature we need. Now, unfortunately, this morning, I just got bad news that the bill that we had been working on this session did not pass. So that's the other lesson we have to learn, is just keep on going. Our goal is eventually to overturn all the extreme sentencing laws so everybody is eligible to go to the parole board. In our movements for change, another thing we need is more places where people can volunteer as new activists, where they can feel part of building people's power and really learn about our history, where they can develop an independent analysis and put their energies to work. So we have a clarion call. Authoritarianism, white supremacy, and fascism are on the rise around the world and take many, many forms. These are not just words for us to glaze over. They are a real and present danger, now maybe more than ever. Some of the forms this fascism takes, how about denying women the chance to control our own bodies? How about banning books on the true history of the United States, on critical race theory, on gender exploration? How about all the anti-science indoctrination, climate change denial, anti-vaccine mobilization, and dangerous disinformation? And now, these indictments against the community in Atlanta. Atlanta has been a testing ground, first charging protesters there with terrorism, which I know some of you have also been charged with here in Arkansas, and now charging 61 members of the Defend the Atlanta Forest Coalition as a racketeer-influenced and corrupt organization. The Atlanta government also just refused to process 116,000 signatures that activists there got on petitions to stop Cop City. They're not processing them. So where is the right to free speech, free association? Fascism is right in front of us. I just want to end by saying I believe building principled unity among progressive organizations is crucial right now. We must communicate with each other about our work, our principles and priorities, and unite in broad multi-issue coalition to accomplish our work. In order to be effective and make progress, our organizations need to focus toward building community power. We must be more collective, organize opportunities to share the political work we're doing, and rigorously strategize for the future. We must be solution-oriented and develop a clear vision. Another world is possible. I just want to end, I know my time is up, but Recently, a friend here in Little Rock received a text from a woman in the Women's Detention Center here, the Pulaski County Detention Center, and they are having a crisis. So if people could get out your pens or pencils, I'm going to give you the phone number of the sheriff. And they have asked, the women inside have asked us outside here to call the sheriff about conditions currently in the jail. They have no hot water. The temperature is cold. They think it's about 50 degrees, and they are not giving them extra blankets. And there has been no effort whatsoever to fix the water. So the phone number for Sheriff Eric Higgins is 501-340-6600, option 5. And that's the option for the detention chief deputy. I know it would mean, I know from experience how much it would mean, how much it always does mean to have support on the outside. So I really urge you all to call. Thank you so much.